A lot of this I found out actually just during my time there. I found out that the first president of the Manaus Mission was actually Elder Costa. R.M. Costa was the first president of the mission. He opened it up in 94-ish, about that time. And in that year, they sent the first caravan to the temple. It took them a week and a half to get down there. They spent a week there. It took them a week and a half to get back. So they were traveling for about a month to go to the temple down in São Paulo. Because at the time, there was no other temple close. It was either São Paulo or it was to go up to Mexico City. So they had really long traveling times. It was kind of cool. I met one elder who served under Elder Costa. He'd served his mission. He was from Porto Alegre, if I'm not mistaken, and he just came back. He loved Manaus so much that he just came back. Also, it's literally, as far as I know, one of the biggest missions in the world. It's probably a fifth or a third of the size of the entire country of Brazil, because it's got the entire Amazon basin in there, all the way from Parintins, which is close to the mouth of the Amazon River, way back to Venezuela, Ecuador, all of those countries. I was kind of surprised when I got there because I thought maybe we'd have bikes. It's all on foot. It's just a walking mission, and your areas are huge. In Manaus itself, there's 11 stakes. So it's huge. It had huge growth in the last 20 years. Outside of it, there's a couple of districts. There's 2 stakes. No, there's one stake and a district that's almost a stake. There's the Porto Velho stake down south in the state of Rondônia. And then there's also the Rio Branco stake, the White River stake. And then the other areas that were close to being a district were Parintins and Maués, were 2 little cities. They each had a branch in it, but they had enough members frequenting that in Parintins they kind of split it up. They divided the city. They already had, it was one branch, but 3 separate meetings so that they could have everybody there. So they would have one meeting on this side of the river, and then one meeting over in this area, and then back over in this area, just so they could have everybody around. There were probably, I want to say, 500 active members in that branch. And there were well over that in the records. It was just so much work there that while I was there, when I got there, it was just one companionship who worked the entire city. And then the transfer afterwards, they sent a pair of sisters out to kind of help them out. And the membership just went back up because they were able to go out and find the members who'd kind of fallen through the cracks. Help them come back to church. In Boa Vista, up north by Venezuela, they're almost at a district. They had 5 wards and 2 branches up there, and just that one city. Outside of it, they only had one other city that had church presence in it, and it was relatively new. It had only been opened like a year before I got there. So they were just in the process of building up and everything. It was just a group at the time. I think they had 20 or 30 people coming. I never did get much east or west of Manaus. I spent most of my time to the east and south of Manaus. Actually, I served in, I think it was 9 or 10 areas. So I kind of got transferred around quite a bit, but I didn't spend a lot of time in a lot of those areas. So my first area was called Union in Manaus. That was when I was in the mission office with my companion. Then I went up to Boa Vista to an area called São Bento, or Saint Bento. I'm not sure what it means really. After that, I did go to Maués, way out by Parintins, almost outside of the mission. We're like right on the edge of the mission. You couldn't go any further. You'd be in the Belém mission. I spent 6 months there, just straight. I got there, and my companion, he'd already been there 2 transfers, so he was kind of sure that he'd get transferred, and he didn't. He stuck around for me, taught me the area, and then he got transferred. So I got another companion. I spent 2 transfers with him. He got transferred. And then I got my other companion, the only American that I had. So it was kind of funny with the 2 Americans in the middle of the jungle. And then I got transferred after a while because we went to a zone conference, and one of the assistants just asked me, yeah, so how long have you been in Maués? It's like, I've been there 4 transfers now. He's like, what? They totally forgotten I was there. I guess I just didn't stir the water much yet. Nobody really knew who I was, other than I just leave me out there and let me work. They forget about me. So after that, I went like Parintins, Maués is over here in the west corner of the mission. So I got on the plane for my transfer, came back to Manaus, and then I went to Rio Branco, Porto Velho, then Rio Branco, and then I got on a bus for 12 hours to get to my next area in a little town called Cruzeiro do Sul. Way out, we were almost on the border of Peru. I mean, there were areas where you could actually, like, you climb up on the hill, and out in the distance is Peru. You could literally see it. And we would joke around about that a lot in the zone, because our area, we had 12 missionaries in that city. We had 3 branches and 2 companionships per branch. And my area is just massive. It was just one little corner of the city and everything outside it that way. Walking from the corner this way, it was over an hour walk. And then going from this way to get to like a little settlement area that was out there, it was like almost 2 hours to walk to it. Just to get there. We'd spend the day there, spend 2 hours walking back. And then after Cruzeiro, I went to a little place called Ji-Paraná, down in the south of Rondônia, right above Bolivia. I spent another 6 months down there. I loved it. It's one of the best cities that I passed in. The people, they were really open. A lot of them didn't necessarily accept what you were saying, so I never saw a baptism there or anything that was my investigator. It was just nice to get to know people and see a ward that is like, it was a mature ward. Up till now, all my experience had been in branches, mission branches, and they were like new. Maués, it was 20 years old, but it was so isolated that you could really never get leadership in there to help them. We were 16 hours by boat from the nearest city. Cruzeiro was the same deal. We were 12 hours by bus. The only leadership we had were the 3 branch presidents and the zone leaders, and they were the only people who would go to Manaus every transfer. And they'd go for like 2 days and come back. And Ji-Paraná was kind of the same deal. It was a mature ward. It was actually already a ward when they made the Manaus Mission. So it was kind of fun. When I watched the video of the first caravan, it was kind of cool to see that area. Because I'd just gotten out of Ji-Paraná, I could just see the path that they made. They passed through Ji-Paraná. I got to see some of the old members the original members of the church. It's just nice meeting the pioneers. After that, I went back to Manaus, spent a transfer in a little area called Guarani, just kind of the slums, the ghetto. And it's really ghetto. It looked like Rio. what you think of Rio as. After that, I went to a little area close to, well, it was still in Manaus. It was closer to the temple, closer to the river and everything. So it was just a little bit more open. We were up on the top of the hill. You could kind of look out over everything. It was kind of nice to just see it. So overall, I just kind of served everywhere in the mission. I passed in 9 areas. It wasn't even close to the record. There was one of the assistants went to every area in the mission just because he was the traveling assistant. So the common religions down there, at least in the areas where I served, like on the outskirts in Manaus, it seemed like it was mostly Catholic, and Assembly is what they called themselves, is the Assembleia and the Universal. Outside of it, there was the Assembly and the Universal were a lot more pronounced. They were a lot stronger. So they literally everybody would say, "Yeah, I'm from the Assembleia, the Assembly of God." In Maués, there was a little more of the Catholicism. They had the big old cathedral. Well, big. It was kind of interesting. Just literally, you could have a church anywhere. Like, we would be walking, and there were streets that is like you would see 10 churches walking down the street. Just walking, you would see 10 of them. People going in and out. So they're very religious people. Sometimes, though, they may not understand completely. They'll just say, yeah, it's this way. And then when you try to explain it to them, they just don't understand it. But when they do understand it, it clicks. They know it. It makes sense right away with what they've already known. Some of the pastors, I ran into a couple of them. Some of them, they would want to Bible bash and everything. And our president just told us, don't. You'll lose. It's not worth it. He's not going to listen. So do what you can. Just leave your testimony. Leave them with the Book of Mormon and leave. Go find somebody who will listen, who wants to know. The biggest challenges were actually definitely the last three, getting people to church, because by definition they're kind of a lazy people. I like to joke around. It's like, yeah, it's Mormon Standard Time plus Brazilian Standard Time. when they say, yeah, I'm on my way, they're just literally walking out the door and they're 20 minutes late. So that was kind of an issue. We would leave our apartment. We'd have a meeting at like 9 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We would leave our apartment at 7 o'clock. Just start, come on, wake up. You gotta go. You said you'd be there. Let's go. So we would go after everybody. Sometimes they would come, sometimes they wouldn't. The other problems, there was a lot of the marriage issue. There was a lot of living together without being married, which in some areas it wasn't so much of a problem. They were open to being married, and it was very easy to do it. It would just take like 2 weeks. You could get their papers. You could bring them into the office, get them all signed. Then you'd bring them in. They'd perform the civil ceremony, and you're set. They can be baptized. And most of the time they wanted it. They wanted it that way. The other thing, in 2 of the cities that I served in, there was a lot of alcohol, especially in Maues. But I guess it kind of was the festive time. I was there during Carnival, and I was there during the World Cup. So it was just alcohol all over the place. Especially after Brazil lost to Germany 7-1. Literally, they shut off the TV after Germany was at 4-0, and they were just on the road getting drunk. So I was like, it's not going to be worth working today. You're just going to be talking to drunks. So we went back to our apartment and started just studying for the next day. Other than that, it was pretty easy. It was relatively easy work, and people are very open to it. So one of the funnier rumors, well, for me it was just really funny because it was just totally wacko. I was in Paraná at the time, and we were attracted into this guy. We actually talked to his girlfriend before. We hadn't been able to talk to him because we gotten a referral to a less active member who lived in that house. So we're like, oh, sweet. She's the only member in her family. Let's go. Let's go visit. Let's go say hi, at least. Maybe we can get her reactivated and everything. So we went down there, and she'd already moved on. But we ran into this girl. I forget her name now. I think it was like Angelica or something. So we talked to her, and we're like, yeah, could we come by another day and share a message with you? So she said, yeah, when my boyfriend's here. And it's like, great, 2 people. We'll definitely be back. We came back, we talked with him, and then after the lesson, we were just kind of chatting, and we were just like, yeah, so what actually have you heard about the church before? And he said that, yeah, he'd seen the missionaries walking around a lot, but the rumor was that it was a church for the gay people. So I was like, what? Like, yeah, we always see just the 2 guys walking around. Like, well, I can understand where you're seeing that from, but that's not how it is. So we spent like an hour explaining it to him, and then I don't know if he really believed us, because we never saw him again. And just a bunch of little crazy stuff. People would ask us like just these random questions, like, so what do you believe that God appeared to a 14-year-old kid? Like, yes. Really? They didn't know what to think. And then they would show like videos of their pastors doing miracles, and they would ask us what we think. Is like, well, I think, to be honest, most of it's trickery. Maybe some of it's real, I can't say. But just the feeling that I have is not is not right. It's not what you think it is. And they just, I don't know, they just would not like to talk to us after that.